Capital Farm Credit Wednesday night podcast, our weekly look at the area athletic scene, what happened last week, and what's going on this week. I'm here with my partner, Dan Youngblood, via Zoom. And tonight, Dan, we've got Coach Andreas Aguirre of Saba. And the Saba Armadillos have got a humongous game this week facing a Cisco Lobo football team that has not lost a district game since 2010.
Yeah, no, this is one that we've had circled for, basically since we knew that these two would be sharing a district. This is a game that we knew would be a huge one. This one we kind of assumed to be a Big Country Preps game of the week type matchup. And it certainly is. You got two teams that come into this one at 4-0 in district that have really played pretty well all season long against tough schedules. And it's going to be a fun one. I think this is going to be a fun podcast with Coach Aguirre, who's done a really, really nice job since taking over that program. They had a great year last year, and this year, even after losing some key players, they're as good, I think, as they have been. So it's going to be fun talking about this group, some of the things that he's really enjoyed about coaching it, and I think just about this matchup. It's going to be fun talking to him about what he's seen on tape from this Cisco team and kind of what he sees as maybe being some keys to getting out there with a win. But I think this is a game that's going to be on a lot of folks' radar statewide, but especially in this area.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun to talk about it. It's going to be fun to go there and watch this thing. I know the Saba community is just over the top excited about this one. This is one of the bigger ball games that they've had on their home field in a long time. So it's going to be a fun one, no doubt about it. Before we jump into this week's show, we want to thank our primary sponsor, Capital Farm Credit, with offices all over Texas, including Stamford and Abilene. Buy your own slice of Texas with Capital Farm Credit. Together, we're better. And with that, Dan, let's jump into last week's ball games. You had Wylie at Ryder. You made the long trip up to Wichita Falls. We were concerned about the ring rust that Wylie was facing. That's an awfully good football team to go and face without playing in a month. And that was the challenge for Wylie.
I think there was some ring rust. I think Wylie made some uncharacteristic mistakes that they were not making during their 2-0 start. But really, the story of this one is just that Wichita Falls Ryder football team. That is an extraordinarily talented football team with just, athletes up and down the roster, huge size. That's a really, really good football team. That is, I'm not exaggerating when I say that this team has an opportunity, in my opinion, to make a run to Arlington if things break right for them. They've got all the ingredients, some really, really good receivers, a couple of good running backs, some big lines. And then they've got one of the best quarterbacks in the state. And that's the thing that I think probably impressed me most about Ryder in that matchup was that I knew Jacob Rodriguez was good. I'd seen him play before. I saw him play out here when the last time they came to Wylie. And then what really impressed me about him was his ability to run. He was just a really good dual-threat running back. But since he suffered an injury earlier in the season, they're not running him at all. They're relying on him solely as a pocket passer, and he's doing that exceptionally well as well. This is a kid that can do it all. And I'm sure they're hoping by the playoff time that he'll be healthy and be able to run and be kind of the dynamic player that he is. But he showed in that game the other night against Wylie that even without that part of his game, he can still pick apart a defense. And that's what happened. I think they had outgained Wylie 352-35 in the first half and really just dominated in all phases. It was just a mismatch in the first half. Wylie, against the Ryder backups, was able to kind of regroup and get some positive things going in the second half, and I think that was good. They got a couple late touchdowns to kind of leave that game with a little bit of confidence. But the story of this one was just that Wichita Falls Ryder football team, which I think, having seen them now, is the best team in that district, even over a Lubbock Cooper, which has had so much success in recent years.
Okay, the Abilene Eagles hit the road. They faced a Midland Lee ball club that was coming off a loss to their arch rival Odessa Permian, and then also off a bye week. So not only was Midland Lee mad, they had an extra week to prepare for the Eagles, and it proved too much of a challenge, at least last week.
Yeah, and this is a matchup that really scared me going in, and it kind of all the fears I had were proven, true in a 51-19 win for Lee. The thing that really worried me about this matchup for Abilene High was just how balanced and explosive that Midland Lee offense was. Abilene High has struggled in recent years with really good passing attacks. And unfortunately for them, Midland High has one of those. But the thing that makes them so tough is they're just as strong running the ball. And in that game the other night, they rushed and passed for exactly 30 plays. You're talking about, extreme balance, had over 230 yards in both phases. And it was just kind of a game where they got out fast and Abilene High couldn't keep up. But this was never a game on Abilene High's schedule that they needed to win to get to the playoffs. They've played the toughest part of their schedule already, having opened with Central, with Permian, and with Lee. They're about to get a pretty good, equitable stretch down the stretch, where if they can just win the games they should win, they're going to have a pretty good opportunity to make the playoffs. They had a game coming up against Wolford Friendship. That's going to kind of be the one that decides whether they get in or not as that 4 seed. I think they will beat Odessa High. I think they will beat Midland High. They are a better team than both of those teams. But I think they've got to feel good about the way their schedule plays out down the stretch. And if they can win the games they should, I think they're going to be able to snap that playoff drought.
All right. How about those Cooper Cougars? They hit the road. They faced Fort Worth Arlington Hieights on the road, coming away with a 48-0 win. And Arlington Hieights, now granted, they had missed a couple of weeks due to COVID, but they had played well up to that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big story here is just that Cooper's playing really well. I think the job that Aaron Rohn has done with a team that lost a lot of its talent from a really good senior-heavy squad last year is pretty remarkable. I think most people expected this Cooper team to need a little bit more time to gel than it's had so far. And the fact that they've just been blowing people up since district play started, I think is a pretty good sign for them. I mean, the one thing is they're better than everyone else in that district except for maybe Azle. That's the big matchup that's going to kind of decide the district title. I think you've got to like the way they're playing if you're Coach Aaron Rohn. And the big thing is they're doing it in all phases. Offensively the other night, Noah Garcia had a huge game, both rushing and receiving the ball. Aiden Thompson had another good game passing the ball. And the thing that's probably the most impressive and maybe the most impactful at this stage is the fact that defensively they're playing really, really well. I mean, you go on the road and get a shutout. I don't care who you're playing, but particularly when you're playing a team that had come in undefeated, regardless of their schedule, I think that's a big sign. So they're playing well in all phases, and the big thing for them is just to kind of keep it going and keep continuing to improve every week. Because if they can, I think they're going to be a dangerous team in the playoffs once again this year.
And with that, it's time to jump out into the area. We're going to go to District 5, 3A, Division 2, and a ball game that we've been talking about for a while, I'm looking at for a while. We thought this may be a potential district championship game prior to the season, but we knew it'd be a big game. Comanche traveling to Jacksboro and falling 27-14. And prior to this game last week, we talked about Jacksboro running the double wing and Comanche running the wing T, and there'd be very few possessions. And any kind of turnovers, mistakes would be huge because you don't have any chance to make it up. And sure enough, last week, Comanche with a -3 turnover count, Dan, and in a ball game like this, you just can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, you can't make those types of mistakes in this type of football game, like you said, and especially against this type of opponent. Jacksboro is a team that, generally speaking, doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. They do what they do very well. And any mistakes you make are going to be magnified, and that's kind of what happened. We had talked about this last week, like you said, that in a game with this few possessions, you've got to take care of the football. You've got to find a way to score when you have opportunities, and then you can't make those types of mistakes to give the other teams those chances. So I think that was the story of this game, and that's really going to be a tough one, I think, for Comanche now because that's going to drop them into that number 3 seed. So now they're going to have to face a number 2 in the first round of the playoffs. But this is a good Comanche football team. I mean, this is just a good Comanche team in a good district. When you talk about Eastland, you talk about Jacksboro, those are good football teams. But one thing I think we are learning about Comanche is that some of the fears that Coach Hermesmeyer had early in the season just about their offense, maybe not capitalizing on his opportunities, that has kind of come to fruition a little bit in district. But this is still a good football team. They got a great defense and they keep them in every game. And generally speaking, their offense is going to do enough to give them opportunities to win. The one thing they've got to do is clean up those turnovers. That's something that can lose you games pretty quickly, and you don't want that come playoff time.
And with that, we're going to jump over to District 4, 3A, Division 2. The Coahoma Bulldogs playing host to Lubbock Roosevelt, and really a crucial ball game for a high playoff seed in that league, Dan. Roosevelt coming away with a 26-20 win. And yet again, turnovers were the story. A 3-1 turnover count in that ball game in favor of Lubbock Roosevelt. They forced 3 turnovers, and really that was the ball game. And with that defense, it's really tough to overcome.
Yeah, at the same time, I think you've got to give Coahoma some credit for staying in that game the way they did, given some of the mistakes they made early. That game could have gotten away from them in that first half, and they didn't let it. They gave themselves opportunities. But like you said, you're just kind of putting yourself behind the 8 ball when you do turn the ball over 3 times, particularly against a team that is as good defensively as Roosevelt is. So that's going to be a tough loss for them. That's one that could well have been for the number 4 playoff seed in that district. Coahoma will wrap up their regular season with a good Abernathy team in a game where they need to win that to avoid the 4 seed. So
That league turned out to be tougher than we thought it was going to be, really, from top to bottom. I thought that league was definitely tougher than what most people expected prior to the season.
I think all 4 playoff teams are really high-quality teams. I mean, they're good, sound quality teams. And I'm not sure we necessarily expected that to begin the season. I think Coahoma has surprised, even if they do finish 4th in that district. I think that they have proven to be a tougher team than probably a lot of people thought they would based on what they lost from last year. But like I've said all year long, I think that Coach Joslin deserves a lot of credit just for the program that he's built. He's got that team where they can absorb those graduation losses and remain competitive. The one thing that's been tough for them is kind of losing a couple of tight games where they had opportunities to win, this last one being one of those.
All right, remaining in Class 3A, we're going to go up to Division 1. This is District 3, 3A, D1. The Wall Hawks heading over to Clyde for what we thought was going to be a really tight, tough ball game against a Clyde team with momentum. But the Wall Hawks started to show the form that they were showing early in the season, Dan. They rushed for over 300 yards, got that option game going, and really beat a good Clyde football team with an impressive win on the road.
Yeah, and like you said, that was a Clyde team that was building some momentum. They'd won 3 games in district heading into that one, had yet to lose a district game. So that was a really important game for both teams. So for Wall to kind of regroup from that Jim Ned loss a couple weeks ago and get this big win, I think that pretty well locks them up the number 2 seed. And this is a team that out of that number 2 spot is going to be very dangerous in the playoffs. This is a team that runs their offense very well, and it's a hard offense to defend, particularly with short preparation time. And they play defense. So I think Wall deserves a lot of credit because Clyde was playing well. So to go and handle that game the way they did, I think it speaks well of Wall, which I think is starting to kind of round into form. I think you can pretty much – that Jim Ned loss, like we've talked about, Jim Ned's a really, really good football team. You're talking about a state-ranked team and well-deserving of that ranking. So that loss there's no real shame in that. If Wall continues to do what they're doing and kind of build momentum into the playoffs, they're still going to be very dangerous in the postseason.
And now we're going to drop down to Class 2A, District 8, Division 2. The Albany Lions playing host to Cross Plains, really for the district title, Dan. And once again, Albany just has Cross Plains' number. They have not lost to Cross Plains since 1934, 22 straight wins now for Albany over Cross Plains, nearly 400 yards in total offense. They blew open a 6-0 game. It was 6-0 at the half, and they blew it open with a 22-0 third quarter. And what can you say? Albany's Albany.
Yeah, I think when you look at that 35-0 final score, it's easy to kind of assume that was a blowout from the start, and that wasn't necessarily the case. This was a 6-0 game at halftime, and it was the type of game that you and I thought it might be. This is a very, very good Cross Plains defense, and the one thing I worried about
coming in this team, period.
Yeah. The one thing I worried about coming in this game is whether offensively they could move the ball against that Albany defense, and as it turned out, that was the issue for them. They struggled to get the ball, to get first downs, and they couldn't get into the end zone. But I think that the way that they were able to challenge Albany into halftime gave themselves an opportunity into the second half. But ultimately, the Lions were just too strong. And you mentioned it, a really strong running game led by Gene Newton, Coy Lefevre, some of these guys' names who you're starting to see week after week. This is a very deep team with offensive weapons. Beal's doing a nice job at quarterback. Albany's just kind of become Albany. And it's kind of happened maybe a little bit out of the radar because a lot of people may have maybe dismissed them just a little bit after that Hamlin loss.
Yeah.
This is a really good football team. I think they've proven it through their district schedule.
I think you can totally discount the Hamlin loss. Hamlin's a great ball club, maybe good enough to go to the state championship game again. Other than that, Albany has played lights out football all year long.
Yeah, you look at how many shutouts they've put together. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
and to do that against a team. Yeah, to do that against a team like Cross Plains, which has been very solid all year long, with the exception of one upset loss early in the season, is really impressive. So congratulations to Albany and to Coach Denny Faith. They've got a really good team and another team that's going to be dangerous in the postseason. So it's going to be fun to watch that team and see how it develops as we continue.
And with that, we'll move on to last week's Big Country Preps game of the week. A 25-13 win for Ballinger over Bangs. This is a ball game that, we had circled on the calendar for a long time. We both missed the pick. I missed the pick. I don't know why you missed the pick, but I missed the pick because I questioned whether Ballinger could tackle these guys in space. And guess what? Ballinger tackled them all night in space.
Yeah, a big 25-13 win for Ballinger, and I think that just kind of shows that this team is the same team that beat Jim Ned in the opener. They're very, very good. And I think you said you missed it because of you weren't sure if they were going to be able to tackle in space. The thing that I was kind of more concerned about was whether Ballinger offensively was going to be able to consistently move the football against the Bangs defense that had really impressed all year long. And they go and rush for 279 yards, really kind of, stay on the ground and
Yes.
pound them. And I'm speechless. I'm really impressed with the job that Ballinger did. You and I both really respected this team. When we picked Bangs, it wasn't disrespect to Ballinger. We both felt that these were two very good football teams. But, I think you have to now, just really, really be impressed with Ballinger, not only for this game, but for their full body of work. When you put this win on top of that win over Jim Ned, you're talking about a really good 3A football team. So just a good win for them. And Bangs, like you said, they put up a fight. They had a couple big plays, and they had over 300 yards total offense. They were able to stay balanced, but they couldn't get the ball in the end zone, and that's a credit to Ballinger.
They did not consistently run the football. They were up against second and long just way too often. And you cannot keep a defense honest facing second and long all night because the defense knows what's coming after that at that point. But Ballinger was just a little more physical and won the ball game that way. And as far as moving the football, they just absolutely pounded the rock there in the second half. In the second half, they owned the football. They kept it away from Bangs. Bangs' offense was over there drinking water. That's all they could do. They just didn't get their hands on the football often enough because Ballinger ran the ball so well in the second half. 279 yards rushing against that Bangs defense is not easy to do because Bangs played well defensively all year. It was a lights-out effort for Ballinger. Very impressive.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you got to give credit to Coach Lipsy and the game plan they put together as well. I think, like you said, that's not an easy Bangs football team to move the football on, and it's not an easy Bangs football team to stop. And Ballinger is able to do both. And for that reason, they're probably, or at least they're in very good shape now to claim a district championship. So, again, just credit to that bunch. That's a huge win for them.
And with that, it's time to take a look at this week's ball games. The Wylie Bulldogs will be playing host to Wichita Falls High School this Friday. And Dan, it's going to be a big night for Wylie, win or lose.
Yeah, big night. This is they're dedicating that stadium. They've renamed their stadium after former coach Hugh Sandifer, and this will be their first game at home all year. They've had such a strange schedule with some COVID cancellations and some postponements and things. They had their homecoming game canceled, so they're pushing a lot of those festivities into this one. So this is a really big night for them. And I think it's going to be an important game for them. If they want to make the playoffs, this is the type of game they're going to need to win, I think. Wichita Falls comes into this one off a 1-point win over Canyon Randall, which was a big win for them. That puts them right back in the playoff picture. But if Wylie wants to make the playoffs, I think this is the type of game, especially at home, that they've got to find a way to win. And I think this is going to be a good opportunity for them to bounce back from that Ryder game, kind of get a week of practice, get back into the routine of game weeks and those sorts of things. And looking at these two rosters, I see no reason why Wylie shouldn't compete. And playing at home, I think that they've got a very good chance to win. And I will be predicting them to win. But this is not going to be Wichita Falls High showed last week that they're not necessarily a pushover either. They've got the ability to score points. And Wylie's going to have to come out and play well if they want to win.
And with that, we'll move over to District 3, 2A Division I, an important ball game. The winner is going to be going to the playoffs. The loser is going to be staying home. The Haskell Indians are going to be going to Stamford, Dan, and it's really a tough ball game for both. The way I look at it, I think the Stanford's been all over the map. It's been one of the most inconsistent teams we've had in the area this year. They've been good enough to throw a couple of shutouts defensively, and by the same token, they've given up 30 or 40 points in a few other ball games. They've scored a ton of points in some nights. They've been good enough to beat an Archer City team. They've been good enough to give Anson all they wanted. And then they'll turn around. They got blown out by Forsan. They've suffered some blowout losses, some blowout wins. They're all over the map. If the real Stanford football team shows up for this game, I like Stanford.
Yeah, I agree. I think that on paper, Stanford has shown more in their body of work than what Haskell has. But I think in both cases, you've got teams that are probably a little bit disappointed to be in this position. I think both probably expected to be in better positions than they are going into their final game. So I think you're going to see two teams that are going to be eager to prove that they're better than what their resume would tell you they are. And I think there's a case that can be made that they are. You look at what Stanford's done. You talked about that Archer City win. That was a big win for them. This was a team that had Anson down in the second half on the road. If they get that win, they're in a different spot. And then with Haskell, It's just been kind of a disappointing season in a lot of ways for them from the start. But they showed with that win over Cross Plains that when they play well and are able to make some plays and make some things happen in the turnover margin, they've got a chance to play well. So I think in both of these cases, you've got teams that would really love to get to the playoffs, just give themselves a chance. And in Haskell's case, the thing that's kind of interesting about them is that that's a team that's proven that they can get into the playoffs with losing records or with disappointing records and make a little run. So that's something that Coach Brian Hodnett's squad has shown over the years. And at this point, they're just trying to get that opportunity. They're going to try to go into Stamford and get that win. And it's a big one. Like you said, this is a very important game for both programs, I think. And the winner of it's going to be happy, and the loser is going to be pretty disappointed with kind of how their season went.
They're going to have to play better defensively. Now, granted, 4 out of the last 5 games, they've played some pretty dang stout teams. They played Albany, they played Holly, Forsan, Anson. These are all teams that scored points in bunches, and it's difficult to hold those ball clubs down. But they're going to have to play better defensively than they have of late. The Haskell team that beat Cross Plains in week 3, they played really well that night. If we see that Haskell team show up, if they can put forth that kind of effort, we might have a pretty good ball game.
Yeah, and I think it's going to have to – they're going to have to – that team's going to have to show up to give them a really good opportunity to win. But that is in there – they showed that team is in there. They just got to find a way to pull it out. They've had trouble pulling it out as often as they'd like. But, again, they're in a position now where you win one game and you're in. You're playing a one-game season. So it's right there in front of you. You just got to go do it.
Both clubs have that opportunity. It's right there. Mm-hmm. All right, and now we're going to stay in the same district for our next ball game we're going to talk about. And I find this really a dangerous game for Holly. They're going to be playing host to a Forsan team that's on a roll, that's won 3 out of its last 4 games, that gave Anson all it wanted in a loss, a 27-23 loss on October 16th. This is a scary team that Holly is facing. And Holly's got to beat them, or we're going to be looking at a likely 3-way tie for first place. And then it goes to the tiebreaker, and then anything can happen.
Yeah, and Holly will probably and Forsan will probably like where it stands in a tiebreaker scenario, given how close that game against Anson was. So I think this is a really interesting game. This is one that I think that I've been really interested in for a lot of this season, because I've kind of talked about it multiple times on this podcast, that I think that Forsan is kind of the under-the-radar team that nobody really talks about, but that is a very dangerous team in that district. I think we talked a lot about early in the season, especially about Stamford and Anson and Holly particularly. But this Forsan team was kind of the one in the background. They go and get that big blowout win over Stamford and put themselves in a position now to where with one win over Holly, they give themselves an opportunity at a district title. But this Forsan team, I think, is very interesting. They play really good defense, as evidenced by shutting out Stamford in the first half last week. And then offensively, it's kind of all hands on deck. They do a lot of get the ball in a lot of different kids' hands, so that you're not going to be real impressed with anyone's individual stats. But at the end of the night, they're generally very competitive. So Coach Phillips has done a really good job with this team. It's a very sound football team. It's one that kind of has found its identity and really kind of adheres to that. They know what they are, and they've embraced it, and they're just a gritty football team. And this is going to be a fun game against a team in Holly that has kind of been the gold standard in that district for several years now.
Yeah, and they've got some tight game experience. They did lose to Coahoma on a missed field goal in their first week. They are still, to this day, McCamey's only loss. McCamey comes into this week 7-1. Forsan is the only team to have beaten them. They also had that tight game with Anson that could have gone either way. So this is a team that's used to tight ball games, has come through at least once in that scenario. So they're on a roll. So this is going to be a dangerous game for Holly. Yeah, and it's going to be actually, if Forsan runs the football successfully and kind of limits possessions, which they're going to try to do. If they're successful at that, then you're looking at, it's really scary, for Holly.
And they're coming into this one, in addition to that really tight game against Anson that could have gone either way, they've got big blowout wins over Haskell and over Stamford. Teams that you would have maybe expected those to be closer games. So Forsan comes into this one with a little bit of momentum. They're playing well. So Holly's definitely going to have to take them seriously.
Outside of the McCamey win, which was in overtime, the win over Stamford last week is probably the best performance, really, overall, top to bottom, for the Buffaloes this year. They're playing their best football coming into this game. It's an interesting matchup.
Yeah, it is, and this one was districts that I think we always thought could get weird. Like there's a lot of parity in this district. So I always thought that there's a chance that you're going to have either a tie at the top or where you're going to have a district champion with at least one loss. And that could be the case. If Forsyth can win this one, you're going to be looking at a three-way tie most likely, and it makes for some pretty fun scenarios.
Well, if there's an expert around here in getting weird, Dan, it would be you.
Yeah, probably.
All right, and with that, we're going to move on to Class 3A, District 4, Division 1, tough district and a tough game in that district, big game. Always dangerous Pilot Point with great athletes and speed all over the field, taking on an unbeaten Brock team. And really, this will sew up a district title if Brock wins it. If they lose, it gets problematically looking at a tie.
Yeah, I think this is a really intriguing matchup for a lot of reasons. Probably the biggest is that Pilot Point was able to beat Brock last year in the regular season to take the district title then before losing to Brock in the playoffs. So these are two teams with a whole lot of familiarity that have kind of been district mates and district rivals for a long time there at the top of that league. And then the other big thing is that Pilot Point comes into this off maybe their most impressive win of the season, a 52-14 drubbing of a really good Boyd football team. So they went in there and forced 4 turnovers, got a really nice offensive performance, particularly from quarterback Max Holler, and came away with the blowout win to take a lot of momentum and confidence into this Brock matchup. Now for kind of the reality check is that this Brock team is not like any they've played this season. This is a Brock team that is just blowing outside of that one game against Iowa Park. They've blown everybody out. So if Pilot Point can stay in this game, you know, they deserve a ton of credit because nobody at this level has done that to this point.
The one thing that they do have is speed and a lot of it. And these guys, if you get behind Brock's pressure defense, you can get some big plays, and they've got the speed to get them. But Brock is on a completely different level than anybody that Pilot Point has faced this year, with the possible exception of maybe Gunter. But even then, I think Brock is a team that's probably destined to go to Arlington. So you're talking about the cream of the crop in Class 3A D1. I like Brock big. This is an important game, but I like Brock big.
Yeah, I do too. I think Brock's a 2 or 3 score winner in this one. However, if Pilot Point's going to have a chance, I think they're going to have to follow a similar blueprint to what they did against Boyd in terms of turnovers. They're going to need to force 3 or 4 turnovers to give themselves a chance to win. In the Boyd game, those turnovers turned a game into a blowout. I think they need those turnovers just to have a chance to beat this Brock team. So we'll see. I think the way Brock is playing coming in, it's hard to see, like we've said all year, it's hard to see another 3A Division I team beating them. But Pilot Point can at least point to that experience of doing so last year. The game in the playoffs was close. They're not going to be intimidated the way maybe some other teams would. But still, I mean, you still got to find a way. Even if you go into that game confident and prepared, you still got to find a way to slow Brock down offensively and then to move the ball against their defense. And those are tall tasks regardless of who you are.
All right, and with that, we're going to move on to our Big Country Preps game of the week. We're going to go to Class 2A, District 4, Division 1. We've got the Cisco Lobos heading down to San Saba for a really winner-take-all district championship game. And we had this one circled in on the calendar before the season even started, Dan. It was kind of an easy pick, before the season. I thought, man, that's going to be one of the biggest games of the year, and here we are. Cisco comes in having not lost a district game in 10 years. That's an amazing streak. They're going to be taking it down to San Saba for what really is going to probably, in my opinion, be the biggest league challenge, the biggest challenge within their district that they faced in that 10-year span. They're going to go into this game as an underdog.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you mentioned that we'd had this one circled on our calendar since like August or before the season began. I think we probably circled this one when we saw that they were placed in the same district during realignment.
You're probably right, yeah.
This one we knew was going to be a huge matchup, and it has been. And I think part of that's because Cisco's continued to be Cisco under Coach Tennette, which I think was an important deal. And San Saba has managed to absorb a couple of really big graduation losses and continue to play at an exceptionally high level. This is a team that really is within a play or two of being undefeated in this, coming into this one with an undefeated record. So they're maybe disappointed that they have that one blemish they do. So, but yeah, this is going to be a good matchup, one where I think both teams will come into this wanting to win this for that district championship because they feel like this is something that they deserve and have earned. So in Cisco's case, you've got a team that, like you said, hasn't lost a district game since some of these kids were 7 or 8 years old. And then in San Saba, you've got kind of that budding tradition where this program has all of a sudden in the last 3 or 4 years kind of become a state power. and they want to, kind of maintain that. So this is a really fun matchup. It's going to be a really big one. It's going to be a really raucous crowd there. St. Saba really enjoys this program and follows it really closely. Cisco's obviously been Cisco. That's one of the most storied programs in our region,
yes.
and maybe the state. So I'm excited, and I know you're excited. You're going to get to see this one firsthand.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I discount the 6-3 record that Cisco brings into it. If you look at their non-district slate, it was just, for a Class 2A D1 team, their non-district slate's ridiculous. You have teams like Jim Ned in there, Comanche, Wall, Clyde. These are all playoff teams at the D1 level. Well, Comanche's D2 and 3A, but it's all 3A teams that are going to be in the playoffs. They're going to see postseason play and win games in the playoffs. And here's Cisco at 2A D1 playing. So the 6-3 record is totally misleading.
Yeah, and in those games, Cisco played right with those teams for extended chunks of those games. So they've got – they don't have the depth that maybe some of those teams have, but they showed that their ones can compete at that level. And this is going to be, I think, a similar challenge. Their numbers are more similar in terms of school enrollment, but San Saba, I think, is going to have that type of talent. So it's going to be a fun matchup to see if Cisco can go on the road and extend that streak. I'm going to take San Saba. I just am really, really impressed with the job that Coach Andreas Aguirre, our podcast guest tonight, has done there. But, again, I'm going to state one more time, Cisco is Cisco. You can't ever chalk up a win against them.
I'm going to go with San Saba as well. I think if Cisco comes in and can play its style of game and can limit the mistakes that we've seen them make, they've got young but talented skill people, and they hurt themselves with turnovers in games against Wall and Jim Ned. And now they're going to be playing a team that's of a similar level at San Saba. If they can avoid those mistakes and play their game and run the ball, this game could go either way. I think it's going to be a close one-score ball game. I'm going to give San Saba the edge at home. But if Cisco can play its game, we're going to have a great ball game down.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if Cisco can get this one into the fourth quarter within a score, I think that's where you do start to see some of that confidence and some of that history maybe come into play, where this team expects to win those types of games. And obviously San Saba in the last 3 years has become that type of program as well. But when you're talking about Cisco, you're talking about a team that's done that for more than a decade, and a team that has extended that district title streak and district unbeaten streak for that long. So if they can get this game into the fourth quarter, I think they're probably going to be feeling pretty good about themselves and pretty good about their chances of coming out with the win.
The vast majority of Class 2A D1 teams that have to go down to San Saba are going to go down there, wide-eyed. Cisco's not going to be one of these teams. They're going to go down there with a game plan in place, thinking they can win this ballgame. Cisco will arrive believing they can win the game.
Yeah, this is going to be a business trip for Cisco. There's no question. The one thing I like is that San Saba's kind of got a similar mentality. Exactly. I love the mentality that Coach Aguirre has kind of maintained at San Saba, and that Coach Fekoch kind of brought there. I think this is a program that set those standards very, very high, and in that way it is kind of similar to what Cisco's done for just a little bit longer. But this is going to be a fun matchup between two programs that one that's been a power for a really long time and one that's become one in recent years.
And with that, it's just about time to bring on tonight's guest, San Saba head football coach Andreas Aguirre. He's going to have a chance to speak about the Cisco Lobos and what he's seen from this team on film. But before we do that, we want to thank our sponsors. First and foremost, Capital Farm Credit, who brings you these Wednesday night podcasts free of charge throughout the school year. Also, for the Love of the Game broadcasting, and our old friend Terry Slavens, owner of KLAX 93.5 FM out of Breckenridge, KATX 97.7 FM out of Breck, Classic Country 1330 AM out of Graham, 94.7 KWKQ FM out of Graham, KROO 1430 out of Breck, and KWBY 98.5 FM out of Ranger. That is for the Love of the Game broadcasting. Also, Phil Hill of the Abilene Realtors Group, big supporter of local athletics. If you're in the market, give Phil a call at 325-669-5153 or visit his website at philhillproperties.com. And finally, Underwoods Cafeteria in Brownwood. If you're going through Brownwood, look around for the big cowboy sign and you'll find it. Some of the best home cooking in the big country. That's Underwoods Cafeteria, a landmark in the big country since 1946. And with that, Dan, it is time to bring on the man, Andreas Aguirre. And he's excited, and the entire town of San Saba is excited about this ball game they've got coming up. I think they've been looking forward to entertaining the Cisco Lobos all season long. This is one of the biggest matchups they've had there in a while. This is going to be a tough game.
Yeah, I think that they're kind of in a similar spot to where we were, where they knew this was going to be a big matchup if they took care of their own business, and they have. They've gone through
Yes.
that schedule and played as well as they've needed to get to this point and have a chance now to go and take that district title and get into the playoffs with a number 1 seed. But I'm excited to talk to Coach Aguirre about the season he's having, about this matchup, and really just about the continued kind of the building they've had of that culture. I think that's such a big part of what he's done there. Is just kind of continue to build on that culture that Coach Peacock brought, and I think that has a lot to do with the way they've been able to kind of sustain some graduation losses and sustain their level of play. So it'll be a good time talking to him about that, and I'm eager to see what he has to say about some of these things and what he's seen from the Cisco team on tape. I'm sure he's been impressed.
And joining us now via Zoom, San Saba head football coach Andreas Aguirre. Coach, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you guys. Thanks for reaching out to me tonight, and thanks for covering our team as well.
You bet. Coach, you got a huge matchup this week. You got the Cisco Lobos coming to town. I know that you have already looked at them on video. What are your impressions of this ball club? What do you make of the Cisco Lobos?
Well, they're a good team, great, well-coached team. I know they have a good culture over there. I've spoken to their coaches several times. They've got a great community. They're big. They're physical. They got some playmakers in the right spots. They play some good defense. Well coached team. So it's exciting to see this team coming to our house, and we're hoping to do what we set out for and win a district championship. And what other way to play against the Lobos in the last game to do it?
Okay. Without tipping your hand, Coach, just in general terms, what are the keys to beating these guys for you?
Man, we're going to have to stop their quarterback. He's the playmaker. He does a lot of good things for them. We're going to have to play with the low pad level up front. They've got some big physical guys on that old line, and stop their run game, stop their play action game. It's going to be a tough thing to do, and we're going to have to sustain drives against their physical defense.
And Coach, just in the 2 years that we've covered you guys, I think we've kind of seen the enthusiasm in that community around y'all's team and around y'all's program. And obviously y'all have given them a lot to cheer for the last few years really. What have you seen just in terms of excitement, enthusiasm around this matchup in particular? I think this is one that a lot of people kind of had circled on their calendars for a while now.
Well, let's just say I went into the coffee shop this morning to go get a cup of coffee, and people were fired up about it, asking me several different questions already. And I said, guys, we're about to get to it here in a little bit, and make sure y'all get y'all's ticket early and come out and support us. I mean, people are fired up. Doors are painted. Flags are out often. I walk different campuses. People are constantly honking, saying "Go Dillos." I mean, people are continuing to be fired up around here, and it's a lovely sight to see.
Coach, I got to think that both San Saba and Cisco, win or lose, are going to benefit from this ball game because it's going to be a playoff atmosphere, an electric atmosphere, and that's what you're going to be facing in postseason play. After this. So this is it gets you ready for postseason play.
No doubt, it's gold ball season. Every win from here on out gets you a gold ball. Our kids know that. Our coaching staff knows that. I know the Cisco Lobos know that they're ready. They played a bunch of big games this year as well. They're ready to make a playoff push, and win, lose, or draw. I hope we see each other again to go a couple rounds later on down the way.
It could happen.
No doubt.
And Coach, y'all are just a couple of plays away from being undefeated going into this game. Y'all have had another great season. And you've seen some really good teams the last 2 or 3 years. I guess just first of all, what do you kind of view as being this group's ceiling? I mean, how good can this team be?
This group has a lot of potential. We've continued to grow and come together each and every week. It's a little different feeling this year, knowing that tomorrow's not guaranteed. That's the message we've been preaching, as in every day tomorrow's not guaranteed. But especially this year with COVID and the situations we got going on, the government can shut us down. The local health authorities can shut us down at any moment. Administrators could shut us down. We're a case away from being shut down. So you just never know, and we take that into every practice, trying to go 1-0. But the sky's the limit with this group. I've told people from the beginning, we're going to try and wear you down and play defense and win the special teams battle. So that's what our team's built about, and they continue to come together in that locker room.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's probably impressed me most is that y'all have had to compensate for some pretty key graduation losses from the last couple of teams y'all have had, and done so against what I think most would consider an enhanced non-district schedule. So y'all played a tough schedule, handled it really well. I mean, just what have you seen in terms of that, just this program kind of handling some of those types of things?
It's the continued growth day in and day out. Kids continue to believe in what we do, continue to believe in our core principles and in our culture. They still love to hit the weight room and get in there and get after it and grow bigger, faster, and stronger. But that pre-district games, those were big games, as every game is big. But the competition was very high and well-coached teams, and they're getting us better for the future. And we're hoping to see that pay off.
Coach, when you lost midseason to Llano, I remember there was a lot of scuttlebutt on social media, and I remember I got on there and said that loss means nothing. That loss means nothing, and that actually may benefit San Saba to get into a tough ball game like that. Was that the case? I mean, have you benefited from that loss at Llano?
Oh, no doubt. We've learned a lot of lessons, and the message that we took away from there is you really don't know what you have until it's gone. We had a perfect season going into that game, and it was taken away from us. We lost that game. Hats off to the Llano Yellow Jackets. They were well coached. They did a tremendous job, and in the end, we made a few mistakes that cost us. But we definitely learned from it, coaching-wise, teaching-wise, and our kids definitely learned from it. But I'm not the one to say it's a good loss, but we lost the game. They won the game. We made some mistakes, and we definitely grew from it.
And Coach, you mentioned that program culture, and that's something that we've talked about quite a bit over the last couple of years with you, is just the culture that's been built, that program, and just maintaining and building on top of it. I guess one thing that I've been impressed by the last several years is just kind of how quickly y'all have adjusted to the weight of these high expectations and how quickly that's become the norm around your program. I guess, can you just talk a little bit about that, about getting this program to where it is from where it was this quickly?
Well, it was Coach Koch brought me in through a mutual friend, and we continued to get together, and he did a lot of setting the foundation and putting in a lot of things moving forward. I was very fortunate to get this job after he left. He gave me an opportunity to be his defensive coordinator. But the administration, the school board, and the community felt that I was the right one for the job, and I can't thank them enough. Our kids believe in our core principles. It's talked about often. We continue to use the C word, not COVID, but culture every single day. That's very important to me, and we're a family-first organization. I know that we lost a great, explosive group of seniors last year, and a lot of people didn't have us here, last year when the season ended. But our kids, winning is contagious. Our kids see what it takes to get to that next level and make those deep runs. And people tend to forget those kids that are moved up to the varsity in the playoff games. They're getting a bunch of practices over and over and over, week in and week out. So those guys are continuing to grow, and it's continuing to help our JV and our younger kids out as well.
Coach, talk a little bit about this region that you're in. There is no easy way out for anybody other than Post, who went to Arlington last year. You're in there. Panhandle's in there. Cisco's in there. New Deal, Sundown, Hawley, Anson, the list goes on. It's a tough road to get out of here.
Oh, it's a tough road. It's a tough region. Every week's going to be a solid ball game. There are no gimmies. We just got to continue to focus on what we can control and not worry about anybody else. Just continue to go 1-0 each and every day, and just hopefully we get another opportunity to cash another paycheck that next week.
And Coach, you talked about some of the seniors y'all lost from last year's group, which I think was probably a pretty foundational group for what y'all have done. But you've got another class this year that's done some really special things across multiple sports. What does this senior class mean to you, and how much have you enjoyed just getting to work with this team, given some of the uncertainty that we had just 4 or 5 months ago?
Oh, well, they're a special group to me, as each and every group is, but this group especially, when I first came here, they were freshmen. We still bring up pictures every now and then to show on the big board about how big they used to be and things like that, but they've grown as leaders and young men, and we've talked about trying to mold them for the future, get them ready for life, and try to win a couple ball games along the way, and they've taken they've taken heart to that, and we're excited about where they're going to head to in the future.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be keeping an eye on you the rest of the way. And of course, we will be out there personally Friday night for the Big Country Preps game of the week, Cisco at San Saba.
Awesome, guys. Safe travels. Thanks for checking us out, and good luck to the Lobos. I know they're a well-coached team, and we're looking to give them heck and try to break that streak that they got.
And that was San Saba head football coach Andreas Aguirre, and you can just tell he's excited, and I mean that town is excited about this ball game. I'm getting excited now. I'll probably be nervous before kickoff.
No, and with good reason. I think that one thing I've enjoyed in the 2 years we've covered them, getting to know him, is he's such a good ambassador for that program and for those kids. I mean, he really believes in what they're building, what they're doing there. And you can tell in talking with him that he knows how big this is for his program. If they can go out there and get that win, get this district title, you're talking about building and sustaining a really strong tradition at that program, which I know is his goal, is to get this program up to that level of what a Cisco's been. So this is a good opportunity for San Saba, which has been really, really good in a different region in the past couple of years. They're coming to our region now, and this is a big game to kind of set them on the right path for the playoffs. I think that in this region, there's some tough matchups. I think you want to get that number 1 seed. I think that helps your playoff path. So it'll be interesting to see if his team can get it done, but I enjoyed talking with him tonight.
And with that, it's just about time to wrap up the Capital Farm Credit Wednesday night podcast. But before we do that, we want to remind you that on YouTube to please hit the subscribe button. If you watch these videos on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. That way these will be ready and waiting for you on YouTube as soon as we post them. If you watch them on our website, which most people do it that way, that's fine. But if you're a YouTuber, please hit the subscribe button. Also, we want to remind you that we've got 3 separate subscription packages here at BigCountryPreps.com. We've got a monthly for $5 a month. We've got a semi-annual 6-month subscription where we knock that price down to $4 a month. And we've got an annual. We got a full 12-month subscription, $3 a month, $36 for a full year of Big Country high school athletic coverage.
And lastly, we'd like to remind you that if you see a photo you like in any one of our galleries, it is available for just $7. You can click on that small shopping cart icon to the bottom right, follow the prompt, and purchase as many of those as you would like. If you scroll around the site, you've noticed we take a lot of photos, and all of those will eventually end up in our Big Country Preps archive. Make sure you check that out. That's something we're very proud of here at BigCountryPreps.com.
All Big Country, all high school, all the time. Welcome home.